The work of one of the most widely distributed artists you've never heard of is probably gracing your bedside table or coffee table right now. It's definitely in your doctor's or dentist's office. Who are we talking about? His name is Tim O'Brien, and he's an illustrator of magazine covers. Dozens of magazines, including Time, the Smithsonian, GQ, Rolling Stone, Newsweek, TV Guide, The Atlantic Monthly, Business Week. The list goes on and on.
I have a special spot on my heart for all the Time covers I've done over the years. I don't quite know how many, but I did my first one in 1989, and I did them through the Clinton administration and the Bush administration, Obama administration, and now the Trump administration. I've done a painting of bin Laden when he was captured and killed, and that was a big cover.
Illustration is a time-honored art form that predates not only photography, but even the printing press.
It was a major form of communication prior to printing, and if we want to go way back to religious iconography as a way of educating people who couldn't read. In the printed world, before photography, it was the only way to show how things looked.
One of the most famous illustrators of all time was Norman Rockwell. He depicted with great realism particular moments not caught with a camera. And that's something illustration can do. Depict a feeling or convey a message or idea when a photo just can't do the job. O'Brien remembers a cover he did for the Smithsonian magazine.
There was an article in the magazine about Rockwell's private life that had just come out. The magazine was also having a story about secrets of American history, so they just combined both articles to make a cover image. It's a famous Rockwell painting where he is doing a self-portrait. We see him from the back, and he's standing in front of an easel, and he's looking in a mirror at himself. Instead of that, we have him painting what looks like an invisible man in front of him. He is not painting himself. And then Abraham Lincoln is sort of sneaking around the corner. All the elements in the piece, I don't recall what they are now, but they all had to do with articles that were in the magazine at the time.
O'Brien says illustration can also make a point without being accused of false news.
Time magazine takes a real photograph of Trump or somebody like that, and then does some digital manipulation to the photograph to convey a point. It's altering reality in a way that blurs the lines of... this is my opinion, by the way. This is not Time's opinion. But if an artist does a painting of it, it has a certain latitude that allows you to get away with things.
Unlike fine art, where an artist works alone for inspiration, an illustrator works alongside an artistic director.
An art director calls, asks me if I could do something, I say yes, and then I immediately start getting to it. It's a collaboration. It's the unknown of what any given week will bring. And a fine artist generally doesn't operate with prompts from anyone else. They wake up and they decide what they want to do that day.
When Attorney General William Barr exonerated President Trump of any collusion with the Russians, Time magazine wanted a cover to highlight that event and, at the same time, make a statement.
D.W. Pine, who's the creative director at Time, we've worked together for years, and we have an understanding about what works and what doesn't. So he emailed me early on a Monday morning and said we have potential cover, and he just says Trump and an umbrella. And I know the situation that Barr sort of cleared him. So then it's about doing a little pencil sketch for myself and then getting all the necessary part, a buying reference for the body and then assembling things and then sending all that to Time and different versions of that. And then they approve one. And I do this all within like 2 or 3 hours.
That's extraordinarily quick. But O'Brien honed his ability to work fast early in his career.
I knew a long time ago, about 20 years ago, that if I was going to be an editorial illustrator, I was going to have to be faster. And I was going to have to prove that, too. Because an art director would never think to, if they had a short deadline, let's hire an oil painter. That was the last thing you would want to do. You'd want to find a digital artist who can theoretically work quicker.
And because of the fast-paced news cycle, O'Brien says a good illustrator also must be up to the minute with current events.
If you want to do editorial, you should know a little bit about the world. And I do spend a lot of my day listening to news and reading the newspaper so that when a magazine or art director calls and says, you want to do something with an umbrella, I know what he's talking about or she's talking about. If I didn't, I wouldn't be able to work as quickly.
From the time O'Brien gets the initial request email to making sketches, to getting approval, and then painting the final illustration, the entire process takes roughly 3 days. That's literally not enough time for the paint to dry.
These days, I have a high-end camera, and I have a dedicated area of my studio where I take the painting and bring it over to the photography stand and photograph it and send the client the image.
O'Brien has worked as an illustrator through 4 presidencies. He says each president was different and required varied artistic skill sets.
During the whole Obama administration, he was quite photogenic and scandal-free, and I didn't do a lot. Apart from when he was elected, I did a lot of portraits of him. But after he was president, I didn't do a lot of portraits, and there weren't a lot of Shakespearean covers of magazines of the foibles of Obama. It just didn't happen.
But fortunately, there's plenty of other work for illustrators other than magazine covers.
They do illustrations about science or relationships or economics or race and gender, and they do science fiction book covers and all kinds of different images, as well as like surface design, like patterns on clothing.
Even postage stamps, which O'Brien says are the exact opposite of magazine covers in terms of pace.
I've done several U.S. postage stamps. Most of them have been like Legends of Hollywood stamps. And it's a long process. They tell you that they want you to do a stamp, and then you do your sketches, and then you have to wait for a committee to look at them, and that can take months. And then if there's changes, you do those changes, and then you wait for the next time that committee meets. So they can go on for a long, long time. And depending on the family, if there are survivors of that family, of that person you're painting, they might also have some input and approval. So it's exciting, but slow.
And in case you're wondering, the original painting from which the stamp is made must be under 10 inches in height.
You don't want to do it too large because you can't see that it's a painting if it reduces so much. So you want to do the painting small so that some of the brushwork is still evident.
O'Brien has also illustrated several well-known book covers. However, he wishes he could have done one series in particular.
The Harry Potter series would have been a nice thing to get. But, I'm not greedy. I'm happy with the Hunger Games. I did the whole series.
As president of the Society of Illustrators in New York City, O'Brien loves to promote the work of illustrators and publicize their important role in documenting history, present and future. He also oversees the Society's 3 galleries of exhibits that change every couple months.
We have had exhibitions in every genre, from science fiction art to comic and cartoon art. We had the art of Spider-Man, which was a big exhibition.
Illustrations are everywhere, from the emojis on your phone to the artwork on money to billboards and products on store shelves. And yet, we rarely think of the people behind them. But illustrators are vital to our culture. They document a specific time in history and communicate ideas and messages that would fall flat in other mediums. Though O'Brien doesn't have a coffee table book, you can view his work at your next dentist appointment, or you can visit OBrienIllustration.com or our website at viewpointsonline.net. Also, subscribe and listen to our show on iTunes and Google Play. Our writer-producer for this segment is Polly Hansen. Studio production by Jason Dickey. I'm Marty Peterson.
Viewpoints returns in just a moment.
June is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, and the Alzheimer's Association is joining forces with the Ad Council in a new campaign, encouraging families to talk about memory loss and other potential warning signs of Alzheimer's disease. Ruth Drew, Director of Information and Support Services for the Alzheimer's Association.
Close family members are typically the first to notice memory issues or cognitive problems, but they are often hesitant to say something, even when they know something is wrong. This new campaign is aimed at empowering families to have these conversations before a crisis occurs.
Titled Our Stories, the new campaign targets family members and features real stories, encouraging people to notice the signs, trust their gut, and start a conversation. It's an essential first step on the path toward managing disease-related changes. Families can start with ABC, assess changes, begin a conversation, and contact the Alzheimer's Association for help at alz.org/ourstories.
Trying to sell your old car? Instead, donate your vehicle to Heritage for the Blind. Pickup is free and your donation is tax deductible. Just call 1-800-835-1478. Heritage for the Blind accepts cars, vans, trucks, and boats, whether they run or not. Donate your vehicle and you'll receive a free 3-day vacation voucher to over 50 locations. Call 1-800-835-1478. That's 1-800-835-1478.
And that's Viewpoints for this week. Viewpoints is a production of MediaTrax Communications. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook to learn about upcoming shows and find a library of past programs on iTunes. Plus, you'll always find podcasts of our segments and information about our guests at viewpointsonline.net. Join us again next week for your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.